Hi, I'm Lynn Wise, and with me today is Lauren Goodrich to talk about her most recent geopolitical weekly on Russia. So, Lauren, we've heard a lot about Russian aggression lately, but you kind of posit in your most recent weekly that it's part of this longer historical cycle based upon Russia's geographic constraints. Can you lay out some of those constraints?
Yeah, I mean, Russia's not acting as a bully or as an aggressor just to be a bully, as much as the West likes to depict this as just a Putin phenomenon. Instead, it's really rooted inside of Russia's geography and its geographic constraints. I mean, you're talking about the largest country in the world. 75% of it is frozen the majority of the year. Its grain belt is precariously placed in a way that it's difficult to transit food across the entire country to feed all the population. It's a country that is surrounded on all sides by various enemies from Europe, Middle East, South Asia, East Asia, and of course the United States is global. And so it's a country that is absolutely paranoid with maintaining internal cohesion while rebuffing external influences pretty much. And the only way Russia can really do this is by expanding its borders and consolidating at home.
And so can you talk about how that's kind of led into this cycle of kind of times of massive expansion and boom and then just complete destruction and kind of bust?
Yes, so Russia is a very interesting historic case study in that you can see a fairly loosely similar cycle happen over and over and over again for over 1,000 years, in which you have Russia, because of its geographic vulnerabilities, have to consolidate at home, and then it has to start expanding its borders out, or at least its influence out, in order to prevent any of those outside influences from influencing what's happening inside of Russia and break down what's already a fragile country to begin with. And so we've seen throughout history someone come in and really swoop in, consolidate the people, create a national identity, and unify the people underneath their cause. I call them the savior, pretty much. And then they start expanding out into the borderlands, all the way out through Central Asia, down through the Caucasus, out through Europe, in which Russia has to then pretty much rule over very diverse and hostile populations that don't want to be ruled by Moscow, especially because Moscow's so far away. Ethnically and demographically is very different than the Russian population. And because of this, Russia tends to become overextended because they have to financially take care of these people, politically try to keep some sort of cohesion. It takes a military, it takes a very robust security service. And so because of this, Russia becomes so overextended that it tends to collapse, or it has to completely transform what it is. And then it goes right back to the start of the cycle.
And so we've been kind of at the peak of this of expansion, and so what comes next? Can history kind of give us a clue to that?
There's quite a few scenarios moving forward. So Vladimir Putin has done an absolutely brilliant job at saving Russia, whether you like him or not. He came in and took it from the chaos of the fall of the Soviet Union and underneath Boris Yeltsin and recreated Russia to be a very robust and strong country internally by consolidating and starting to push back out what we've called the Russian resurgence for the past decade into its borderlands and up against various enemies, or as it sees, rivals pretty much, whether it be NATO and the United States or Turkey or China. And so Putin has come to the point to where he had a very stable and strong country until 2014. And then we saw just a series of crises really create the perfect storm for the Kremlin, in which the Kremlin now is financially weakened, is politically weakened, is seeing failures all over its borderland to maintain its influence. And we're starting to reach the point that something is going to have to change for Vladimir Putin, in which he can muddle along for quite a while. I mean, Brezhnev muddled along for decades. However, Putin is under so much internal and external pressures that something going into the next decade, especially as he enters his fourth term in less than 2 years, is going to have to change for him. I'm not saying Russia's going to collapse, but there's either going to have to be a political or foreign policy shift out of Russia.
Is there a break to the cycle? Is there any, Is there something unexpected that could arise, and what could that look like?
Well, we're seeing so many fragmentations happen around the world, and we're seeing a world that's very different than 1991 Soviet Union collapse, to where it was the two big poles and one of them collapses. Now there's powers all around the world, and to where it's not just about having the United States as geopolitical rival fall apart. Now it's about a rival to powers all over the world, from Germany and Poland to Turkey and Iran to China and Japan and South Korea, to where Russia now has to worry about a lot more than it did at the Soviet collapse, to where there is so much influence kind of bombarding Russia's borders from all sides, and very powerful influence that it didn't have to really think about so much external pressure on it versus 1991.
Thank you. We'll be watching closely. For more on this and other topics, please visit stratfor.com.